Hi, my name is Yangkeun. I am a third year economics PhD student at UCLA Edison. So I will be presenting today my working paper, Form Dynamics in Common Resources, Lessons from the American Railway Industry. Let me start from the very undergraduate economics perspective. Common resources have two main features, non-excludability and high rivalry. So the market barriers typically happen because of excessive participation and investment. We can easily find many real-world examples, such as fishing, groundwater extraction, carbon emissions issues. The key problem is individuals' self-interest may not align with the social interest. We need to seriously consider individuals' behavior when we think about common resource problem. Also, dynamic consideration is key to resource management because resource stock growth and its relation to individuals' behaviors are essentially dynamic objects. However, there has been little evidence on micro level for dynamics in the commons. The main reason is it's difficult to observe entry, exit, and capital accumulation in real-world data, because non-excludability or open access feature implies everybody can freely enter and exit, make investment. So it's relatively hard to have systematic data reporting. Also, most of the modern data sets have a relatively short time period, so it's challenging to capture the entire firm's life cycle. So this paper revisits the tragedy of the commons issue by estimating the values of entry, exit, and investment behaviors from firms. The question of this paper is how the firm level dynamics affect efficiency in the commons. And then I asked what are the impacts on market outcomes and welfare. To answer the question, I studied the American whaling industry from 1800 to 1920. The data contains information about around 1,000 firms, 10,000 voyages, and 2,300 vessels. So it covers nearly all American whaling voyages. Importantly, there was no regulation in this period, and also American whalers dominated the world whaling markets. But the empirical challenge is the competition for resources, in this case whales, was so severe. So there were many firms, and resource stock constraints are time varying, of course, also unobservable to firms. Moreover, the firm's dynamic behaviors are correlated with this resource stock. So to tackle down this issue, I built and estimate a model of dynamic gains to capture the competition among many firms. And then I assume firms make beliefs about future resource and industry stage transition. So even though firms do not exactly know the number of whales out there, but they understand how the whale population transitions in relation to competitors' behaviors. So here I summarize my findings. I will show there is misallocation of capital and the production. There was large productivity spread across firms and over time. So firms with low productivity still maintain large vessel capacity. So there is a possibility to reallocate resources to improve the overall efficiency in the industry. So I explored the mechanism behind this. I find that there is asymmetric cost structure due to the endogenous price and resource relations. The key takeaway is because it's common to resource, there is overinvestment, which causes resource stock decline, and it reduces supply, then its price increases. So there is incentive to invest more or delay investment, even though firms have low productivity because the price is higher, it becomes more profitable. So as of ensures that so far I estimated investment cost and its scrap values. So I need to do entry cost part. Then I will check whether there is asymmetric entry exit problem. And then with the estimated model schematics, I will conduct counterfactual experiments for future planar space to measure the extent of the welfare loss. And then I evaluate market institutions such as the Guvian tax and the cap and trade system to mitigate the welfare loss observed in the data. In the literature of economic resource exploitation, there has been long tradition of the theoretical works. And recently there has been increasing empirical papers. Compared to these existing papers, I explicitly consider entry exit investment problems at the micro level. Also, there has been increasing attention on resource allocation more broadly, from detecting misallocation to evaluate market design. In relation to this, I suggest market institutions to mitigate misallocation issues in front of resources. So I will be briefly talking about industry background and the data I used. And then I will explain a very high level model without any detail. And then I will go to key estimation results. So this American whaling was huge industry. For example, in the 1850s, it was the fifth largest industry in the US. The major output was oil, like sperm oil and whale oil. So they were used as elimination source and also lubrication for industrial machinery. Also, this industry was very capital intensive. For example, the average vessel size was around 215 tonnage, which is very good. Importantly, there was no regulation. So the industry experienced decline of oil stocks and then increase of prices. This is the basic structure of the organization in the industry. Whaling agent was the key decision maker in this industry. So they were considered as like whaling firms. They organized the voyages by hiring captains, recruiting crew members, and owning vessels. They also managed important information such as sailing routes and timing of whale migration. So later, when I talk about productivity of firms, I mean production efficiency that is not explained by vessel capacity and firms' experiences. This may include managerial practices, planning, and information power. So the database is coming from so-called whaling voyage database. This contains nearly 50 American whaling voyages with the information of unique ID of firms, captains, vessels, and outputs in terms of sperm oil, whale bone, and vessel size, type, and departure return years. For the empirical analysis, I convert the output to the number of whales harvested based on the historical document. And then I construct the firm level panel data by changing voyage level database to firm year level. And the important detail of the industry was the voyage was very long, so the average voyage was around 2 to 3 years. This graph shows the total whaling vessel tonnages and also the number of whaling firms. And the shaded period from 1830 to the 1850s was called the golden age of American whaling. So we can see that the huge growth and then very quick decline of the industry.
The decline in the industry just lack of whales or the replacement of the
I will explain about that part next slide. Yeah. So the major output was sperm oil, which was the most valuable output. And the dots are the quantity produced. You can also again see the peak during the golden age period around the 1850s, and then declined quickly. Then the price started to increase a lot, it almost doubled. So it's called the first oil crisis in human history before 20th century. Then the red vertical line is the year of petroleum discovery in Pennsylvania. So as petroleum substituted oils from whale, the price of whale oil, sperm oil started to decline. And this is the projected whale population based on the whale population trajectory model made by international whaling commissions and other marine biologists. And the major target species were baleen whales and sperm whales. They both experienced substantial decline in population during the golden age period. At the very high level, I'm gonna relate the individual level state variables to their decisions, and also industry aggregate state and resource structure vision. At the beginning of every period, firms have their individual state, vessel capacity, productivity, and the firm age. Then based on all the other aggregate information, they make output, which is measured by number of whales harvested. Then price is determined by aggregate supply and aggregate demand. Then firms make profits based on their output and the market price. Now they make dynamic decisions. They're gonna decide whether to exit or stay. If they stay, they're gonna make investment or divestment decision. And there are also potential entrants. So they're gonna make entry decision. And if they enter, they will also make investment decision. So at the beginning of the next period, the state variables will be realized. And importantly, the whale population of the next period is determined by current period population and the natural reproduction rate, and also the total number of whales harvested in this period. So the basic concept of equilibrium is non-stationary oblivious equilibrium. It's non-stationary because I capture short run dynamics, which is represented by the rise and fall of the industry. And it's also oblivious because there are a large number of small firms. So each firm doesn't know the exact state of other competitors. Instead, they make beliefs about aggregate expected state. Specifically, they make expectation about whale population, aggregate capacity, and the price. But in practice, the usual concern is the distributions of entry exceed the investment cost or latent. So we cannot observe directly in the data. So I applied a two-step dynamic gains estimation by Bahari and Karbolevin. In the first step, I estimate demand curve to get the price elasticity of demand. I estimate the production function to identify production parameters and the productivity of firms. And then I finally estimate quality functions to see how firms behave based on their state variables. And in the second step, using all the result of the first step, I calculate expected value function, and then I recover the remaining dynamic cost parameters. So for today, I'm gonna focus on production function and second step. Production function is very simple, of Douglas, and I also translate production function for more flexible estimation, and the results are almost similar. So Q is the log number of whales, And K is load capacity. I measure as sum of vessel sizes the firm is operating. And A is load formate. And there is aggregate supply factors. And importantly, there's productivity, which is not directly observed by econometrician. So the usual concern is there will be correlation between decisions and the productivity. So I apply dynamic panel approach by assuming the linear transition of persistent productivity and estimate the production function parameters and the persistent parameter rho. This is the result, and I will only focus on my preferred specification column 5. The capacity elasticity shows almost 1, which means constant returns to scale. And if you look at aggregate vectors, as expected, aggregate capacity, which means the competitors' operating capacity, is negatively correlated with my output. And also the overall whale population is positively related to my output. And industry's growth rate is around 2%, which is similar to the other account and other research. So I'm going to skip the detail of the second step, which is too much detail. After estimating production function, I measure productivity as simply residuals. And then you can see that the large dispersion of productivity based on the low scales, so it's quite huge. And especially the lower tail tells that there are many unproductive firms are operating. And we can also see that over time, this situation becomes more severe in the later period. And if we look at simple correlation between firm productivity and capacity, okay, vessel size, the correlation is surprisingly low. And also many years show that even negative correlation, which means unproductive firms are operating large vessel sizes. So to explore the mechanism, I estimate the cost structure. For now, I only focus on the capital adjustment cost function. And for simple interpretation, I report the one example of adjusting one vessel. The average vessel size is 250, so I apply this case. And column 1 is for pre-petroleum period, and column 2 is post-petroleum period. I separately estimate because there is entirely different profit structure, and the cost structure is also potentially different. So when they invest for 250 tonnage vessels during the pre-period, they're gonna pay around $34,000. However, when they divest, they are gonna get only $12,000, which means there is a huge asymmetry in the cost structure. So the value of divestment is not equal to investment value. And this situation becomes more severe in the post period. Now, when they divest, they even have to pay a little bit. This is because the industry profitability reduced a lot. So basically, nobody wants to buy whaling vessels, which became really hard to sell their vessels. So as a summary, this paper measures the values of firms' dynamic behaviors in common resources by estimating dynamic gains to recover entire profit and the cost structure. So the results showed that there is a misallocation of capital and output across firms and over time. The key mechanism is the endogenous resource and price relation, which causes asymmetric cost structure. So this is relatively early stage of work, and there are a lot of things I need to do as a next step. So I have to estimate standard errors for the cost structure and simulate the estimated result to see the model fit with a full model solution. And then in the counterfactual scenarios, I will test policy scenarios, for example, by giving subsidies or tax for their receipt and investment behavior. And then I also impose cap and trade system, which is most frequently discussed policy for common resources. This is my presentation, and thank you for listening.
We have time for any final questions?
So I guess one thing I've been thinking about is, can you separate the effect of the arrival of substitute from the effect of the, because it looks like the whale stock's already declining when it's discovered. So I guess in a lot of situations like this, where there's stuff happening, bad environment, but then the substitutes are less bad. And you're either coming out of that industry because you for a resource to extract, or because something else has come along that substitutes. It's difficult to see when you present it how you separate out those two effects. Obviously, the substitution is good for the whales. Yeah.
You mean the endogenous or petroleum?
The new.
Yeah. For now, I just assume that the petroleum or either is not the shot. Yeah, or you're right. Yeah.
You see that it's going like.
Yeah, because even earlier period, there was more severe rating. Maybe because of the scarce population of oils and price increase, maybe people try to more to find way of oils from ground, and yeah, that might influence of this building. That would be interesting to see.
Were there any consolidation in the whaling industry? One
Yeah.
can imagine that in response, especially to some of the dynamics that it consolidates.
That's really good question. Yeah, there was, and unfortunately, I cannot perfectly identify the murder cases. But yeah, I try my best to see which one is the unique ones.
I mean, it might be interesting just to see how that changes over time, especially like pre-post. The industry structure.
Yeah, and yeah, the market structure changed substantially after petroleum, and yeah, I will endogenize in the counterfactual scenarios the changing market structure, like arrival of the more dominating firms instead of assuming they are small firms. So that endogenous interaction will be interesting.
One other question, can you talk a little bit about how you're thinking about productivity at the agent level? So like some agents are better at picking better captains and better crews and better boats. Seems like a lot of the drivers of firm productivity are going to have to rise down.
Yeah, 100% right. It's measured as residual after explaining the capacity, age, and everything factors and time trends. So a lot of things are going on, including the planning and choosing good captains and labor. I include all the other dimensions as productivity, which is quite a loose definition. I acknowledge that, but I do my best to measure precisely.
Oh.